Hey, welcome back everybody. Hey, today I'm going to show you how I made this noodle board with an engraving and custom cherry handles using my lawn mill from CNC Labs. So stay tuned. Hey folks, before I get started with today's project, I'd like to say thank you to this week's sponsor, CNC Labs, makers of the Longmill benchtop CNC, just like the one we have here in our shop. Be sure to visit their website at cnc.com and check out this great machine. Let's get back to the video. So I started with some Cyprus scraps a friend gave me, and I cut and jointed them. I had a specific size to make this noodle board to, so I made sure all the boards were the equal width, and then I glued the boards together. Now after the glue dried, I scraped off the excess glue, ran the board through my drum sander a couple of times, and then I sized the panel again on my table saw. Now here I was cutting the breadboard ends, throwing some pocket screws in, or pocket holes actually. And now we're attaching to the panel. Since we are painting the project, I sealed the imperfections with auto body filler. Went back to the table saw and resized the panel to its final dimensions. Now once the paint dried, I sanded with a palm sander to the desired look. Okay, got the look I'm looking for, and we are ready to carve. So let's get to it. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go into Carveco and I'm going to design what we want to carve in the board itself. Now, when I say design, I mean we're going to put some lettering on it, something fairly simple. Um, I know I went through that last week with a sign, but I'll tell you what, when I first got this mill, I made a lot of signs, and it's a good thing to just keep doing it, keep experimenting, keep trying, so that you can get to know your mill, know what little things mean, what it sounds like, all that stuff, so that you're not freaking out because it makes a certain noise or something like that, and it will give you an idea better of your settings. It'll give you an opportunity to try the same carve on some scrap pieces of wood and change your stepovers, change your feed rate, change your plunge rate, and see what happens. I keep a little journal and I write down things for the project, but I don't put it in a book. I put it on the computer, and I keep track of each project and what its carves were and everything. Obviously, Carveco files save all that information, but I put little tips in there, um, if you're using a certain type of wood and you have to go cross grain or something like that. Sometimes it's better off going a little bit slower than it is to, just go full speed and, give it a little couple more minutes longer to carve than it would be to just bust through it, even if it's pine or whatever. So we're going to be doing that along, we'll figure it out as we go. But right now I'm going to do something fairly simple, be another type of sign, and just a different project that we're putting it on. And I think if you follow along each time I do something like this, you'll learn something different. And I know I did, and I watched a lot of YouTube videos. There's a ton of videos. Leighton does a tremendous job on Carveco. He's very detailed in his instruction, and it's meant to be. So you really need to pay attention and go to Carveco's site and watch their videos. There's also a few YouTubers out there that use Carveco, and the longer this goes on, I'm sure the more we'll find. So I'll stop talking. Let's get to carving, going to Carveco and creating what we're going to carve today. Okay. I'm going to open up Carveco Maker, and as soon as that opens up, we are going to get started. Okay, we want to go to New Model. Now the sizes are going to be 29 3/8 by 20 3/8. We're going to keep our inches the same. The units are inches. My start point is going to be the bottom left hand corner. We'll click OK. That'll bring us into the main interface. Now, if you watched the video last week, we created some text. That's all we're going to do now. The only difference is we're going to create text using a V-bit instead of an end mill. So let's go over here and click text. Click in the center of the model, and then we're going to type in what we want to carve. Check out the spelling, make sure everything's good. Just kind of wander it up into the center. I'll go over here to this toolbox, the edit box. I want to make sure that I'm centered in the text box itself, so that all my lines, all my words are from the center. That way it keeps it symmetrical. So now what we want to do is I'm going to change the first line to, I'm going to go over here to the size and do 1.5, and you notice that changed it significantly. I'm also going to change the font to a Cambria font. I've already done some research, saving you a ton of exploratory time, and found the fonts I want, and I wrote them down. So I'm kind of cheating in a way, but I'm actually saving you some pain and suffering. So we're going to go to the stove word over here to the size, and we're going to make it a 3. Okay, now we are going to use a different font for that one. We've already looked it up. We're going to use Freestyle Script for our stove font. Now we're going to go to the next line where I call it. Sounds like a horse race. 1.5 is our size on that, and we want that to be Cambria as well. So we're going to go right up here to Cambria, We're going to select that. Now the word therapy needs to be emphasized a little bit more, because that's what this whole carve is about, basically. Why am I reading this? And it's to get to this word therapy. So it needs to be a different type of font than the rest. It needs to be larger, so we're going to make that a 3. And we are going to, let's move everything, stretch this out just a little bit. Bring it back in a little bit, just a touch. Now I want to center this on the model. You can see it's a lot of space here and not a lot of space here. So we can either manually move it around, or we can hit F9 and it will automatically center it in our workspace. Now I'm happy with the way this is right here. So I'm going to go over here to the right and I'm going to click create. Now there you've created your text. Really simple. The long drawn out process of it is looking for the fonts, thinking about how you want it to look. I did all that research before I did this video so that I didn't bore you with all that. But that's something that only you can do anyway, your preferences. These are my preferences. So I think it looks good, at least it does to me. So I'm going to go up here to the right and I'm going to click Toolpath. I want to go down here to the 2D paths and click on V-bit carving. So now what we're going to do is I'm going to come up here and I'm going to do the selected vectors. That's not an issue. We're going to limit the tool max depth only if we need to. What I'd like to do is I'd like to select a carving tool, and in this case we're going to use a 1/2 inch 90 degree, and I'm going to select that, and then I'm going to come down here to the width and depth of cut information block, and I'm going to click refresh. What this is going to do is going to tell us what our maximum depth is. It's going to tell us what our maximum width is for the carve. When they say maximum, obviously these letters are bigger. There's your maximum. I don't want it to carve too deep. Sometimes when you carve too deep, it just takes forever and it's unnecessary. So I want to make sure that initially I had the cutting depth at a max 0.25. The max depth capable is not even quite that, so we're good. I think everything looks good there. Not going to use a roughing tool. I am going to come down here and I'm going to define my piece, which is 0.75 thick, 3/4 of an inch. I'm carving from the top. Click OK. And we don't have to name this. We've only got one tool path. I'm going to let it name itself. Looking at it, I think that looks pretty good. So now what I want to do is I want to go to the bit itself and click on the carving tool. And I want to come down here and I want to look at all these speeds and feet. Okay. Now the 0.05 Stepover, that is okay for me. I'm good with that. And all that means is how much to the left or right your bit carves. That's how wide that'll be. Your step down will be how far down your bit carves. Now 0.03 is a little small, and because of my experience of doing this before, that's the only reason I know that. I'm going to pick it up a little bit and change it to 0.05. It'll help speed up the carving. And let's see. The feed rate, because this is Cyprus, it's a little bit harder than pine. I think I'm only going to go to 75 inches a minute. I'm going to speed this thing up so that we're not carving for an hour and a half. when we don't need to. And our plunge rate's the same way. A V-bit 90 degree is a big surface, more so than a 60 degree. 90 degree would, it just takes off that much more when you're plunging. So you really don't want to bump it up too far, but I think I'm going to make it 50. And there again, I'm only speaking because of experience. This wood can handle it, my bit can handle it. So that's why we're doing this. So let's, I'm ready to go here. Let's calculate this thing. Now you can see our start point is over here on the bottom left. It heads right to the T and then starts making its move around from there and does whatever it does. So now what we want to do is we want to come over here and we want to select the toolpath, and I want to save it. So we're going to hit save, and we are going to be good to go. Okay, we're going to close this and save this file, and we're going to save it Noodle Stovetop Final. And there we go. Now we'll head over to UGS and we will start the initiation for a carve. Okay, what do you say we go into UGS and get some carving done? This takes a minute to open up. Make sure our machine's on, which it is. Okay, so now we're going to connect. Should clink. There it is. And we are going to do the XYZ. I have the cameras close enough, I hope, to do the XYZ. Now I don't really need to be super accurate with the placement. I just need to get it close. My Z is the most important thing, and that should work out fine. Let's see if I can zoom in a little bit on this other one, get it right close in so you can see what this thing is doing. And let's get it set up. Now, last week I did a video on a sign for Bucky's shop, and I had mentioned about this magnet here, how it needs to be attached. If you don't attach the magnet while using UGS, the router will just keep going south and it will ruin your bit because it doesn't have a connection. This is what gives it its connection to the router. So let's see. So we're going to move this a little bit. I've kind of jockeyed it. I want to get it right in the center of the Sienci Labs logo. It's on the corner. Right. Everything's fastened nice and tight. And I want to screw this down just a little bit so it's a little closer. Doesn't have that far to go. And we are going to do the X, Y, and Z. And this is how I do the X, Y, and Z with a touch plate and a V-bit. Here we go. It does take a little finesse. See how it goes in a little bit farther than it needs to. I turn it, and there we go. Like I said, it really doesn't need to be perfect. With a naked eye, you're not going to be able to tell that that it is off just a tad. So let's go in and get our program that we're going to carve, and we're going to do this stovetop cover text final. And there she is. As you can see, our touch plate is right here, our start point, and it starts with the letter T. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to back this out just so I can get in here and put the dust boot on and get our dust collection set up. I want to lift it up a little bit. This, like I say, this is Cyprus. I don't want this thing dragging on the paint, so we're going to lift this up just a little so that it's not touching. It's not going to collect all the sawdust, but it'll get most of it. So let's get it in there a little closer and let you watch this thing come. Turn the machine on. Dust collection first. You hear that? And all is good. Turn the router on, and we're going to play and keep my fingers crossed. Here, we need a couple of handles for our noodle board, so rather than buy metal handles and put them on, or even wooden handles, I have enough scrap around here. I think I'm going to try to make a couple of handles on the long mill. So let's go to Carveco, open it up, and we're going to select new model, and we're going to go in here. Now I've already created this workspace, and what we're going to do is I'm going to show you how easy it is to create a handle. So the first thing we're going to do is make the feet, and we're going to go to the rectangle tool, and I'm going to click and drag and release. Then I'm going to come over here to the size in the tool settings, and I'm going to make it a 1/2 inch wide, and I'm going to make it 1.5 inches long. Now that takes care of the rectangle size. Now I need to put it in the corner right here. So what I'm going to do here is, it's a 1/2 inch wide, so the x-axis would take 1/4 inch out of that. So I want to put it at 0.25, and you notice it moved it over to the 0 point on the x-axis. And then this we want to put at 7.25, because this is 8 inches long. That's 1.5 inches. 1/2 of 1.5 inches is 3/4. 3/4 from 8 is 7.25. And then we hit create. Now from here, we can either go over here to the rectangle tool again, select, click and drag, recreate, 1.5 inch, and we want it 1.5 inches long. Now in this case, the X stays the same. We want it at 0.25, but now we want it at 0.75. Now you can see that it put the rectangle down here. Now the other way you can do this is you can, let's create this so it's over and done with. Now the other way you can do this is you can just hit Control C and Control V and make a copy of one of your first rectangle and just bring that down. But I kind of like going through the motions because it kind of gets it set in your head and your mind of how to create things. Yes, there are shortcuts for everything. F9 is a very big shortcut, and it centers your work to your piece. But there's so many other shortcuts. I feel I really need to learn, me personally, how to do every command the long way, the drawn out way, and then understand it, and then figure the shortcuts out from there. Okay, so this is where we're at. We got our feet created. Now we need to create an arc between these 2 feet to create a handle. So we're going to go to the arc tool. Just happens to be an arc tool in Carveco Maker. And we're going to make the first arc at the center line of our first foot. That's going to be our start point. And then we're going to come down here to the other foot and find that center line. And that's going to be our end point. Now you can see the arc is adjustable. Now what we want is to be just short of our work space so that if I go too far, it'll create a flat spot. But I want to be in so it's a nice rounded arc. And I click. And that creates the first arc. Now, we'll go over to the arc tool again, and we want to create a second arc, but we want it at the very the back of the foot to be your first point, and the back of the other foot to be the second. And then we want to leave, down here I want it a little wider than up in here, so I want to try to leave maybe 1/4 inch. I think that'll be plenty, so we're using cherry. That looks like about right there. That should do it. So now we're going to go over here. I'm just going to click the select tool, and then I'm going to select everything, and you can see everything's highlighted in purple. This is definitely not going to carve the way you want it, because the tool will try to carve that line, so this line here. So what we need to do is come over here and cut this line and cut this line. And what that does is that creates a path all the way around. But unfortunately, you're still not ready to create a toolpath because you have to join these vectors. Even though we assume they're joined, they're not. So select the whole piece, right click, and join vectors with nodes. Now this will give you an opportunity to tell it the number of, it tells you the number of vectors row now for number of vectors after 1. So you're going to join them. It'll give you one vector, one complete closed vector, no openings at all. So now we need to close that. Now we're ready to create a toolpath. So let's go to the toolpath menu. Let's click on the profile toolpath. We're going to carve on the outside. We're going to have a finish depth of 1.5 inches. We are going to select the 1/4 inch end mill, and we are going to define my material as 1.5 inches thick. Whoops, fat fingers. And that should do it for that. And then you want to calculate. And over here you can see how it created the path all the way around the outside. So that leaves me a handle. Now, the next thing to do is to close that. Let's open this toolpath and save it. We're going to save this as a stovetop cover handle. We're going to save, yes, and we're done. Now we can make our handles. Okay, these are the handles that I made for a board, and I kind of like how they came out just the way they came off the long mill. And I think all I'm going to do is just take the edge off of them and sand them down just a little bit by hand and drill some installation holes, and we'll go ahead and install them on the table. Well, there you have it, folks. One noodle board in the books. Made out of Cyprus, complete with custom cherry handles, and all carved on the long mill. What a great machine for your shop. Go to CNC.com and check out their long mill series. You'll be happy you did. And hey folks, if you like this video, please subscribe to my channel. Until next time, be safe out there.